On today's episode of Gathering the Kings.
That whole change in my approach has created 100% success, because once people organize for that few hours, they're like, I can do this. This is not as
100%.
bad as I thought it was.
Yep.
And so I realized that it's the doing. The doing is where you get the satisfaction. The talking, too much
Overwhelm.
talking is not, for this talking is great, but too much talking for this is not good.
You are listening to Gathering the Kings with Chaz Wolfe, featuring fellow 7, 8, and even 9-figure business owners who have real battle scars from business and life, but have prevailed as the king that they are designed to be. We welcome high-performing entrepreneurs to the stage in order to reveal the real of the real on what it takes to build a successful business today. We dissect the good and bad decisions they've made along the way that give a true and accurate picture of the journey of success and how you too can get there. Through this dialogue, you will learn the value of growing your network and surrounding yourself with power players and kings like today's guest. Grab your pen and notebook because we're about to dive in. What's up, everybody? I'm Chaz Wolfe, Gathering the Kings podcast. Today, I've got a queen on the stage, Tina O'Keefe. Tina, welcome to the King stage. How are you?
Thank you very much. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, well, we are excited to have you here. And as I was just telling you before I hit the recording button, I always say this when I have a queen on the stage, but king doesn't mean masculine, it means mindset. So I'm so excited. I always get excited to talk to the lady bosses out there. Being raised by a single mom family, my mom, my grandma, my aunt, my sister, our cats and dogs were all female. Like, you know, I have mad respect for the female leaders out there. And so I'm excited for this conversation. Tina, tell us what kind of business that you have.
I'm a professional organizer. So I have a business that focuses on a lot of different services around organizing, but main focus is decluttering and obviously making people's lives better, smoother, more peaceful.
Yeah, I think what you find joy in, the rest of us get like claustrophobic about, right?
Of course. Yeah, absolutely.
My 9-year-old daughter, she switched chores with my 6-year-old daughter because the chore that was given to my 6-year-old was organizing the pantry. And my 9-year-old was like, whoa, no. Can I have that one? Because she loves it. Maybe she's an organizer in the future. You never know.
Yeah. I mean, people always ask me how long I've been organizing. And so there's different, how long have you been in business is very different than how long have you been organizing. I've been organizing my whole life. And then I just finally figured out that I could make it into a business model.
Yeah. Well, it's your superpower, obviously. And like you said, now you can make it into something that you love to do and serve a bunch of other people doing it, obviously at an incredible scale. Tina, my first question to each one of my guests is always the same. And I want to know, at this stage in the game, you've obviously been successful enough to where, you know, like you've breached the top percentage, right? Like people look at you here today and think, wow, she's made it. She's done it. And I want to know, why are you still at it? Why are you still doing it even at this stage? What's in it for you? What's your bigger picture?
Well, I think it evolved a little bit from my previous career, which I was a writer and all of my working life up until I was an organizer. And I was always trying to, especially when I worked for big corporations as a consultant, I was always trying to figure out like, where can I do good here? So I used to justify it by saying that when I was writing and then I volunteered my time, I was able to volunteer my time as a copywriter for like a few different like nonprofits that, you assist with grant writing and things like that. Yeah. And I would say like, okay, well, my day job is facilitating me to volunteer to do something for the greater good. And so that's the trade-off here, that I have to kind of suck it up during the day. And so with organizing now, I finally figured out, at first I started it because I got pleasure from it. Like it's fun. It's satisfying to me to go in and help people and see that result. And so it was a little bit selfish. It's like, I like doing this and I know you need help with this, so let's just do it. And then it's a win-win for both of us. Yeah. Then it's become, the business has evolved in which I finally figured out that what I'm doing is I'm a broker between people who want to get rid of their stuff and organizations and charities that might need these things. And people when they're stressed out and emotional, it's hard for them to see those outlets. And so I created a network where I can make those connections a little bit easier. Yeah. It's not always perfect, but I try to donate almost all the things that I clean out of someone's home. So then that way it makes the person feel even better about the process. And then feel like I'm doing good. And so that's kind of evolved over the past few years. And now I feel like that's what really, like, that I love that part of it now, really trying to, and that's the thing that my clients who are hiring me, they like to hear that, like when they're trying to debate about, there's a million, organizers, there's fantastically talented people doing this. So I always say there's enough mess for everybody. So we're all good here. There's plenty out there. But I do feel like that's something that the light bulb goes off when I tell people about the donation part of it. And I'm like, I'll try to find a home for every single thing I take out of here. And they're like, wow, that means a lot to me personally, or especially when I'm working with someone, I'm doing a clean out of a home where someone has already passed. A lot of people feel like that's a real tribute to the legacy of the person who's gone. Like, oh, my mom would have really have liked that a lot. So.
Yeah. I mean, I think at the end of the day, a mess is created by, first world problems. We have too much, and so if there's that hard reality where we go to our closet, we realize I haven't worn that in however long, and I need to declutter it. I know I need to get rid of it, but taking it off the hanger and putting it in the pile to go to wherever is one step, and then taking it to the place is another step, and that's obviously just a shirt or something, not a huge garage that might be a mess or whatever. So there's a big weight in front of people, and that's what keeps them in the mess. And not only do you get rid of the weight, but then you're associating those things to where they really want them to go anyway.
Right.
But every time you think about like getting rid of something in your garage or something in your closet, you think, oh, I should donate this. Like, naturally, this is what I do. But you're really bridging the gap there for the end result. I mean, obviously that kind of like came about probably somewhat naturally, but what was the connection for you a couple of years ago that you just mentioned? Like, how did that begin?
Well, part of it is like, again, it starts out for reasons that are it starts out as a necessity.
Right.
I'm going into people's homes. I work with a lot of seniors. So I just want to stipulate that I work with people from all backgrounds, but I do work with a lot of seniors. And so a lot of times, especially in the beginning, it's a one-on-one. And the reason why is because there's a lack of trust. If you bring in a team of people feel overwhelmed, not just seniors, but people who are anxious about organizing will feel overwhelmed. If you bring in a team of people who spread out in your home and start messing around with your stuff, you get real, like, what are they doing in that other room kind of scenario. So a lot of times it is just like one-on-one. So, and then, you start setting aside items for donation or things that are going to be given away. And then it's just efficient where I happen to live, like where I work mostly, which is the New York City tri-state area. There are so many charities that will come and pick up items, clothing items, household items. They will come. And so it becomes an efficiency to say, I'm going to clean out, make piles, we're going to bag it up, and then I'm going to set up an appointment and have this charity come and pick this up. Yeah. And it just is it's smooth. And so that's kind of how it starts. It starts because it's like, well, it's actually it makes my life easier.
Oh yeah.
And I feel like it's going to a place that, and charities all have different structures of what they do with their stuff. If they're selling it for thrift to make money, or if they're actually giving it to people who need it, there's all different models. But either way, like it's benefiting someone. Yeah. And so that's how it begins. But then you have items that like they won't take. And so then you're like, well, let me research, this item, like wigs, someone passes away, they've had wigs because they were sick. And, well, where can we send that? And where can we send eyeglasses? And then you start to like develop this list of like all these kind of oddball things that aren't typical donation items, but you're like, but there's still a place that you can send them or drop them. So then I start gathering, and then I start dropping them off to these locations. And that's kind of how that's the beginning of it. So it's organic, and then it flows into kind of like systematic.
Yeah. Like, these are business systems now.
Right. Exactly.
I love what you said about, it's one-on-one, or at least at the beginning, because you're keenly aware, obviously, of what the emotional state is of someone who's either wanting to organize, or someone maybe who's dealing with a house that's full of stuff from generations, or maybe someone's past. Like there's a lot of connection there that we have with our stuff, even though we maybe know that we don't need it or want it. How have you like psychologically grown the business in that way? Because that, I think for a lot of listeners, they get stuck in that one-to-one, whatever they're doing, whether they're servicing clients online or whether they're, a contractor or whatever. They stay in that very small place, which keeps their business small, which then doesn't allow for systems and doesn't allow for really any sort of growth. in this market where literally you're kind of almost forced to stay small, but yet you haven't. How have you gotten around that?
You pick and choose the projects that are appropriate for it. So, and also it's like you build up that trust a little bit, and then you can grow there. Then you have an opportunity to say, okay, like for efficiency, let's bring in a few more people and let's get this done quicker, which will make you feel better, and we're not going to drag this out as much. So you have certain scenarios where it makes sense to do it, to bring a team and be more efficient.
100%. Well, I heard you say that the listener can take away is you were purposeful. You were intentional about conversation, about your system, about what steps you're taking them through so that you can build trust. And for you, building trust equals for them to not only let them in your home or let you in their home, but to go through their stuff, but then also allow for a team to come in and feel comfortable. But it's the same trust that allows for people to do other projects or to send their crew over to finish the project or whatever. Do you have a certain step process that you follow in building trust? Or, I mean, you seem super just aware of the other person. Have you always been like that? I'm just trying to pick up on a couple of nuggets here for the listener.
Right. So no, I have not always been so aware. So a lot of that comes from experience. Like when you start dealing with people, you start to see the repeating of certain types of fears and anxieties and behaviors as you're talking to them. So,
that's right.
And we, I definitely, and I've also belonged, just to put this out there, I belong to a National Association of Professional Organizers. It's the National Association of Productivity and Organizing Specialists, which is a mouthful.
Yeah, wow.
That's a national and actually international organization. And, and so in sharing and networking with other organizers, you do learn a lot. So we do kind of learn from each other and from those experiences. So from my own experience and then talking to other people and attending seminars and conferences and stuff, we sort of start to learn different tactics to use and how to approach. And in the beginning, I would just come in, not like gangbusters, but like, you called me for this service, like, let's get this done. And then you start to realize how hard it was for someone to make the pipeline is so long for people who are really struggling with organizing, because they will actually maybe look at your website and then maybe call you, but then it'll take like maybe 6 months. I mean, I've had people call me 6 months to a year out to say like, okay, I'm finally ready. It's crazy. So you have to have a lot of patience with people, the follow-up and stuff. And then you have to kind of know that, especially those clients that are like, the strength and the resilience to call you. It was such a big deal for them. That was such a big thing to overcome. And so you have to know when you walk in there that you have to walk in slow, come in slow. And one of the things that I learned from that was I used to come in and do this consultation, like a free consult. And I'd walk in and I'd be like, we could do this and we could do that. And we could do this and we could do that. And then
overwhelm.
Right. That talking about it, the thinking about it and talking about it was so terrifying. And so then I realized, and then they'd set up the appointment and it's so nice to meet you. And then 2 days later, they're calling to cancel. And because it was too much talking. And so then I changed my model. I changed the approach. And so the first session is a consult, but it's built into, we're actually going to organize the first day from right out of the gate. We're going to do it. Not something crazy. I'm not going to take all the clothes out of your closet and be like, okay, I'll see you next week. Pick a cabinet, a closet, something very small, something manageable. And then we're going to do it together so that you can get to know me a little bit and build that trust. So you can see what the process is and understand that it's not as terrifying as you've built it up in your mind. And then if you're good with this, we're going to repeat it. And if you're not good with it, then, I'm going to leave you with a work plan and you can try to tackle it on your own. Maybe you try with another organizer. That's totally fine. But I want to at least give you a step in. And so then that whole change in my approach has created 100% success, because once people organize for that few hours, they're like, I can do this. This is not as bad as I thought it was. And so I realized that the doing is where you get the satisfaction. The talking, too much talking is not, for this talking is great, but too much talking for this is not good.
Yeah. 100%. I love the action, but you were very strategic even about the action. It was a slow walk in. It was a patient approach, but even in that doing. It was, we're going to do this one little cabinet. I think all of those things are obviously super specific to organizing, but the takeaway for the listener is pay attention to your client. You said, which they're going to experience the same thing. There's going to be 3, 4, 5, maybe 10 fears or objections or things that are holding back from doing business with you. And you need to write those things down, the ones that you're hearing over and over and over again. You need to, just like Tina just said, you need to adjust and change or grow in yourself as well as in your process so that you can deliver the result that you're looking for and they're looking for. I love what you just did was as far as like removing the thinking and the overwhelm, because that's all that they've been doing for the last 6 to 12 months is thinking and overwhelming themselves about it. And it's time to get it done while you're there. It's taking advantage of that moment in a good way because you're giving them or you're delivering them to them what they actually need, which is the end result, the satisfaction, the seeing of like, okay, I can do this, all of those things that you're delivering, but you weren't before. And so you had to figure that out. I think that that's just a huge takeaway for the listener. I want to know practically, we're kind of keeping the same vein here inside the business of a good decision that you made, maybe early on, maybe in the last year, but that the listener can take away something specific that you can look back and go, yes, that decision, that one thing right there, I'd do that over and over again.
The systematizing the process of onboarding people and utilizing an agreement to set expectations. You'd be surprised how many people in my industry don't have a written agreement with people, which is super dangerous. You're going to someone's house. But yeah, that just systematizing that so that, we do a phone consult, making the process real repeatable, obviously, right? So with the phone consult and then the follow-up with the email and the agreement. And the agreement is it's really written in plain language. I really wrote it with the idea of like even making someone laugh a little bit. There's like some humor in my agreement, but the idea is like, what you have to do to prepare, nothing, and then it just walks through like the process itself and the pricing and, any other caveats. And then that person, I'm like, you don't have to do anything with this. I just want you to see it. I will bring a hard copy with me when we meet. And then, and then we sit down with it and they ask any questions, and it stipulates if they allow me to take photography, which a lot of people are not comfortable with, and I'm totally okay with, but we talk about that a little bit because I do encourage people to do it for themselves. And I was really bad about when to introduce this agreement and then when to, and people would, sometimes I walk into someone's house and they not attack you, but they want you to start immediately. They want to walk around immediately. And I have it like on top of my clipboard. It's like, you have to. And I tell the people who I work with, first sit down, take the 5 to 10 minutes to go through this. It's going to be a much better outcome. And that was something that I really had to force myself to do, because it's so easy to be like, okay, I guess we'll talk about this at the end, or we'll talk about, this process has to be a certain way. And there's a good reason for that. And the outcomes are better. So having a system and then really sticking to it and making it habitual, because that it's going to produce a better result.
Yeah, guys and ladies who are listening, I hope that you're paying close attention, because Tina is teaching you sales process and this whole entire thing. If you want to use the word sales or system, whatever, it's not a bad word. She's taking her people through a process that leads them to good expectations, good communication, a little bit of humor. All of that just makes it super real and actually even fun for her clients, because again, she's done this over and over and over again, and she knows how to put them in the right step at the right time to make them feel the absolute best about their scenario. And the first step that you just described, agreement, whether it's a phone call, whether it's in person, doesn't really matter. It's setting proper expectations, letting the other person know what it's going to look like. I did the same thing with you a few minutes ago for this podcast. It was, hey, let me give you some permission points. Let me tell you how this thing's going to go. And all of that, what it does is it connects people, and it also allows for both people to understand where we're going. And so that way there's no questions. If we feel good, we can go together this way, because we both, at least for the most part, understand what's about to happen. And I just love how you made it habitual. You love it as a discipline. Put it on top of the clipboard. That's habit stacking, all sorts of very, very good disciplines that Tina's given to you guys. I just really, really appreciate the practicality there. I want to flip the coin. Tell us about a bad decision.
Well, to the same effect, when I've decided not to bring the agreement in, doing a a job as a favor for somebody, and then, not really setting the expectation because it's sort of a little bit more casual,
Sure.
engaging in casual, that sounds terrible, engaging in casual relationships, but like with the business, and then not really sticking to the format.
Yeah.
I also, in the same vein, I have friends who initially wouldn't hire use my business because I think they were a little intimidated. And now I think people, like some of my friends, are coming out of the woodwork, like, okay, I'm finally ready. I'm not as embarrassed. I think it's going to be okay.
Yeah.
And then not treating those as business situations, because actually what happens is they feel like maybe they're not getting, because you're not treating them like a proper client, maybe they're not getting the treatment that they might want. And also like an awkward sense of guilt because maybe you've done something for them and they don't feel like they've compensated. So really just following the same process, even with people that and just making them feel like they're getting the full experience. And I think that they value that. You think you're doing them a favor by not doing that, and actually you're doing them a disservice. So if they've reached out to you to hire you for this service that you're providing, and they know that this is your business, then treat them like a client, even if you think that that's like not nice, but I think it sets expectations better for everybody involved.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I think that that's a huge takeaway. And we've all made this mistake. Yes, we have all made this mistake, and we could probably share stories around the campfire all day. But I can tell you the times, even within my own mastermind group, I've got a couple of buddies that I've known for a long, long time. And I did this exact same thing that you just described. Agreement, everything's in place, as far as expectations, pricing's the same. I mean, everything's the same. And actually, because of that, I feel like they take it to another level. It's like we're buddies, but they see me as a person that they're doing business with. And so because of that, I get things like, hey, I'd love to get on a call with you if that's okay. I don't want to take advantage of our friendship. Right. And so which is like a whole nother level of like respect. And you're like, wow, okay, of course I'd love to get on a phone call with you, buddy. Like that, there's no big deal here, but now it becomes a choice and not an expectation or taking advantage of anything. It's just clear what it is, what it isn't. And then anything over and above can actually be the friendship. I do this with even in my family. I have some family and some of my businesses that run some of my either properties or involved in some of my businesses, and good expectations there. It's like, no, like we have a business meeting here on Thursdays or whatever. And we go through business stuff and we try to, like we can talk personal a little bit, but we take this moment here and all of the week stuff from business stays in this conversation. So that way the rest of the week we can be family, friends, whatever. It's just setting these lines and boundaries. Would you say anything addition to that? I mean, we've talked about your agreement a little bit, but I've kind of taken it a little bit outside the gray. You want to say anything else to this on this topic?
No, I just feel like from a personal standpoint, as a mom who started her own business, I still struggle with, I have people who still think, I mean, I'm insanely busy. Like I sometimes work 7 days a week, and I'm out there with my business, and I'm like, I still have people who circle around and are like, oh, are you still doing that? Like you still have that hobby? And I'm like, yeah, actually I do. And it's going really well. It's actually a business that I run, and it's so funny that it's like, you still have that a little bit. So that's why for me, it's even more important to be like business-like when I have those kinds of conversations, because I still, it's hard sometimes when you're trying something, you try something out and you're growing it and growing and growing it. And maybe people outside of your sphere who are not on social media, maybe, or who are not, they just don't know what's going on. And then they're like, oh, is that still a thing? And you're like, oh, it's a thing. And so it's important for me to really be like, I am a businesswoman, and I do have a business. This is not a hobby. And this is serious. And
I'm not a mompreneur who just like, I'm just working in projects outside of nap time.
And that's a great thing too, that people,
100%.
I love that can also be a possibility for people that,
yes.
And that's what's awesome about, being an entrepreneur in some ways. Like my business grew organically as literally my children grew up, and like time availed itself. Then it was like, and that's when you realize, like, I want this. Like when my kids are not here, I do want to be doing this because this is bringing me great satisfaction.
Yeah, I love that you made that distinction. I'm glad that you did that, because I definitely don't want to portray that the side hustle for moms, dads, whoever. I mean, I think we've both been in that stage as well, and and I think that especially for moms, my mom growing up single mom family, she didn't have any side hustle businesses, but she had 2 and 3 jobs all the time, and I have no idea how she did it. So my hat is off to those moms specifically, but I love the going back to the original point here of the friends. I want to encourage the listener here is really what I want to do, because I'm guarantee you they've gotten the same thing where it's like the friends of the family, you know, especially Thanksgiving. We just got done with Thanksgiving this past week, and it's like, hey, how's that thing? It's like, keep your head up. They don't know. They don't really need to know either. You know, like if you're going to interact with them in business, fine, you know, treat them like a business, a client. Like you said, I love that perspective. But I think in our earlier years, ego fits in, and we like, you know, we have to kind of like beat our chest and, you know, talk about all the great things. But the reality of it is that close friends and family, a lot of times just aren't going to get it, because they themselves aren't entrepreneurs. And that's why we seek out podcasts like this, or mastermind groups, or, you know, professional organizing international groups to be a part of, and stuff like that, because they're people like us, and
Yep.
and the people who we're talking about just aren't. That's why they ask us about your thing.
Mhm. Yeah, 100%. And along the same lines, from a business point of view, one of the things that happens, I think, too, is that sometimes I think you because you're, especially when you're growing, you question, and I think women entrepreneurs suffer from this a lot, in that they undervalue themselves. This is like a big problem. I mean, in general, in the workplace,
Yeah.
I think this happens. You have these disparities, but like you're afraid to ask what you think you're worth, you know, when you're
Yeah.
setting your pricing, et cetera. And so, and I think it comes back to that a little bit, like, you know, a little bit of doubting yourself, like, is this,
Totally.
you know, am I legitimate enough to, I can, you know,
Yeah.
charge these rates or whatever. And
Yeah.
my first client has passed away, and I have 2 family members from his family that are my clients. So
Yeah.
I've been in business almost 10 years. So they've been with me for a long time.
Yeah.
But he was my very first client, and I was so excited to have a customer that I really I was charging like nothing.
Yeah.
And my husband was like,
What
are
do
you
you
covering the cost of the babysitter or the transportation? Like,
You're
what are we
right.
doing? But I was like so excited to get someone to say yes to this
Yeah.
prospect that I like didn't, you know, I'm like, okay, I don't want to scare them away by charging them too much. And
Right.
then, and you learn super quickly, like, that you cannot function that way. And that you have to say, like, well, this is, you know, you got to do your research, but also say, like, this is what my services cost, and not back down,
Yeah.
you know, because, and you just got to find the right customers that, you know, understand and value what you do.
Yeah.
And, you know, not trying to gouge people, but like trying to be fair and
Yep.
get compensated for the work that you do.
Yeah. You said it earlier when I asked about, you know, connecting with the right ones. And you said basically you just have to find the right projects, you know, that allow you to either bring in the team or whatever. In this case, we're talking about pricing. Like it all fits into the same kind of mindset of, this is who I service right here. And then staying in that lane for the most part. Like there's going to be kind of like this right outside the wake on both sides, the gray, if you will. But generally speaking, it sounds like you've got this lane of people, and they can afford your service. They appreciate your service. It allows you to really hone in on those fears that specific group of people have. And it allows you to provide that much better of a service, which then they're willing to pay more for. It's a better experience for them. It's how you create raving fans, is what we talk about sometimes here, is just that, you know, how do you get people to pay you more and be happy about it? Well, you dial in your process, and you over deliver, and you can't over deliver if you service just anybody and everybody, and you're under pricing yourself. You know,
Mm-hmm.
you won't do it for very long, at least.
Exactly.
Yeah, you won't be in business for very long. What I have to ask this question, sometimes I skip it, but you are an organizing mind. And so every one of my process and system questions I have to ask you. It just feels natural that you would give us an answer on these things. But regarding decisions, because that's kind of what we've been talking about, good and bad decisions. What process or system now do you follow that you stay organized with around thinking about decisions? Something comes to your desk today, you got to make a decision. Is there a 4-step process that you follow, or what does that look like for you?
I put it on my to-do list. If it's like a piece, you know, if it's something like a piece of paper, let's say, that has to be processed, like I put it on my to-do list, and I schedule time to address like those types of decisions that have to be made or purchases that have to be made, whatever that is. I tell my clients that all the time, like, you can't have a pile that's not reconcilable, that's not cross-checked, it's not indexed anywhere. A big scary pile of decisions, papers, bills, whatever those things are, it should be accounted for somewhere. That's how I approach it. So, you should have a list, and then you should schedule time to address the things on that list. Having a list is great, but if you have no time built into your day to address those items and make, administrative time, client time, etc., you have to schedule it, and then eventually become habitual, but you have to put it on the calendar.
Yeah. What about in that decision time frame? Like, you've got your calendar, the thing pops up, you grab your list and your stack. Are there big decisions, small decisions? Are they all together? Do you just kind of go down the list? Do you prioritize? I don't normally go this deep, but I gotta get into that organizing mind a little bit.
I usually prioritize a little bit about a little chronological, like things go to the top of the list that are timely.
Sure.
So I like make sure that if there is a timeline on it, there's a deadline written in. And sometimes I, like anyone else, can get overwhelmed if there's like something big that I need to, I want to change my cable provider. My internet is not great. I want to change my provider. And it's like, that's such a big thing. I got to research and so sometimes I break down the task into like subtasks a little bit as well. And I'm like, okay, look, today I'm just going to call 2 places and make an appointment so I can get comparisons. And then once I have that, then, we'll circle back. And so sometimes I have to break the big things down into smaller things in order for them, because I look at my day and I say, like, I can't spend half the day researching the cable company. I gotta move on. I have clients to see, or I have phone calls to make. So let's break this down. Let's do a couple things towards the end game, and then we'll revisit this tomorrow or in 2 days, or etc.
I hope the listeners are paying close attention. You are dropping nothing but absolute gold right now. Do you use a software? Is it a paper list? What do you?
I use a hard list on my phone. I use the reminder. I'm real basic. I tried a few things. I have reminders, and then I plug stuff into my phone calendar. I use a digital calendar because I share my calendar with the family so that they can see when I'm working and when I'm out of the house, etc. So we can sort of be efficient about
organized.
How we can be organized. It's just it's too hard. Like when you have a family moving in 5 different directions. I have 3 kids who go to 3 different schools, and so it's just like running around. So everyone needs to sort of. I'm always like, look at the calendar. Don't talk to me until you look at the calendar. Make sure like we have time to do that. So then I put in little personal like time in there as well to get things done.
Yeah, exactly. I love it. I hope I'm going to say it again, because I really hope the listener, if they're listening and not taking notes, I want them to pause, like literally hit the pause button right now. Freaking get your notebook out and be taking notes, because Tina is giving you the absolute practicality around getting stuff done. I love it. You're an executor. I want to go to our speed round here. I got a couple of questions coming from a different, unique angle. We're going to talk KPIs in your business first. I want to know, if you could only pick one thing to track, what would it be?
Repeat customers, I think, like repeat calls.
Okay. Like the number of times that someone uses you?
Yeah.
Okay. And why that one? What does that KPI do for you to be able to, do you organize the rest of the business off of that, or what's that do for you?
I mean, the one and done is satisfying because I feel like sometimes that's all that someone needs, but to build value, the continuing value of the maintenance relationship is really important to me. And I feel like that's when I can, as we talked about earlier, those are clients that like I can then maybe send in another team member, then it's like those are relationships. So I think that for me would be the best thing to be tracking.
I think that I knew you just blew my mind. I know you just blew my mind, but I think you might have just blown all of the listeners' minds if they were paying close attention like I was. There's a maintenance portion to organizing. Please help us understand this. What are you talking about? I mean, I think I can probably put some pieces together if I had to guess, but what is this? What are you talking about?
So getting yourself organized. Well, I'll take a step back. So the first question I get from a lot of people is, like your home must be immaculate. It must be amazing. And the truth is that I live with 4 other people who don't always cooperate with what I'm trying to go for. Right?
I love that word.
So I have systems set up that at any moment I can say, you know, everything has a place to go. Whether or not it's living there in the moment is a different question, right? So, you know, everything has a home, and the house can be organized when push comes to shove.
Right.
But if you walk into my house at any given time, that's not necessarily what you're going to say.
Yeah.
So I'll just say that. Let's be real. We have families.
You're
right?
living
So,
there.
right. And I live here. Right. So along the same lines, so organizing is like setting up those systems, but sometimes there are individuals who they can't keep it up on their own. Organizing is part organizing, and then part managing it's time management, because the truth is you can set up an awesome system for someone for their correspondence, for their incoming mail. You know, this is a big ticket item that people are always struggling with, like the mail, my papers, the mail. And it's like, you can get the whole thing under control. You can file everything away, set up amazing systems for them to show them what to do. But if you're not allotting time on a regular basis, you're going to end up back where you started again. You know, you're going to fail. You need that. We have to build in something into your schedule where you're going to take the mail, you're going to sort it out, organize it, and, you know, put it, whatever system we have in place for you, implement that. Right.
Yeah.
So sometimes people can do that on their own. Once you set that up and you tell them what to do, and you tell them once a week, once a day, whatever it is, you're going to have to deal with this. Some people can do it. And a lot of people, they need someone to come in and do it with them. They just need to stay. And sometimes that's a once a week. I have a once a week. I have once a month. I have people quarterly who I meet with and just make sure we kind of get them back on track. They like that kind of touch base time. And sometimes there are new things that have popped up that are bothering them that they want to deal with. But a lot of times it's just let's, you know, baseline, where are we at? How are things working out? And not every system is perfect the first time you develop it. You talk to somebody, you give them a great solution. They think it's a great solution. It meets the needs. Some people need things to be vertical. Some people need them to be horizontal. Some people need to see everything. Some people don't want to see anything. So you have to really tailor it. But then sometimes in the practical nature of using it, it doesn't work. And so sometimes the maintenance is coming back and tweaking. Why didn't this work? Let's talk about it a little bit and figure out what's happening so we can make it right for you.
Yeah, I purposefully asked that question for two reasons. Number one, if any of your clients are listening, or any of the people that are listening are in your area who are planning on hiring you, I want them to know the benefit of not only just setting up the system, but then maintaining the system. And I think that they should, if they have already hired you to organize, they should hire you to keep it going, because that's how you win. You just described that. For everybody else listening, this is how you win in business. I promise you, okay? Because it is not just about the initial goal or the system or the whatever. It is about that piece. Yes, you have to have that, right? You have to set up the initial person or the system or whatever this is that we're doing. But there also has to be the management of, or keeping people accountable, or making sure the system is working, or the constant tweaks of, is it working right? Or can it be better? Or making it efficient? There's the initial, and then there's the maintenance, there's the ongoing. And so, Tina, whether you realize it or not, you are literally telling people how to run their business, run their life. That's what we're going to call this podcast. Freaking organize your life and business with Tina. So I just so appreciate you just helping your people do that naturally. And then obviously now you're helping entrepreneurs through your own language be able to do the exact same thing in their business. It is literally how they stay ahead. If they're not organizing it originally, if they're not maintaining it, putting it on their calendar, tweaking the system, all of those things, their business will not thrive. I promise you. And eventually what happens is you have to have somebody else come in and do these things. It's not just about the entrepreneur doing it. It's about a team of people doing it. And that's a whole nother thing. But then they have to follow this exact same process. You've been incredible. Okay. One more question. Actually, two more.
Okay.
What do you think about a book recommendation for entrepreneurs who are trying to grow their business, or maybe a resource?
I will go resource on that. I will tell you, when I was starting out, I started with reading tons of articles. I mean, there's so much information out there, right? But I started with the Small Business Administration. So this is a government agency who's trying to help promote entrepreneurship, and then they'll direct you to local offices.
Yep.
And so
SBDC, right?
Exactly. So, the Small Business Development Councils, corporations, I can't remember.
Yeah.
SBDC. And so they're all over. I luckily, again, live in an area where I have access to multiple ones. And the one that I ended up at, which was the QEDC, which is one based in Queens, part of New York City, the Queens Economic Development Council. And I went there, and they have so many programs available. I mean, including just networking events, just to meet other people who are starting out, business plan seminars, you know, all that stuff. Like they just have, and all these agencies have so much information to offer. So a great resource in just terms of like the mentoring. They'll set you up with someone who will walk you, whatever you need help with. They'll be like, let me help you do that. So they're incredible in that regard. I even got my logo through a program. I qualified for something called the Marketing Accelerator program, where I applied and I was partnered with a graphic design student from Queens College and that student's professor. We had 3 sit downs where they met with me and interviewed me about my business. The student then developed graphic designs based on our conversation, which I went through, approved, and then we met one last time where everything was delivered and we had like kind of a closing. That student got credit for the work that was done, and I got my logo, which I love and I'm so happy with. So awesome. Just think about like that cost, what that can cost a small business to you know, to do logos and develop all that. So that was amazing for me. So I think that the SBA, the SBDC, and then like those local offices, they really offer so much to people. So there's so many opportunities for growth. In, you know, even if you're coming from like, I have an idea for a business, from there to I have a business, how can I make it better? Yeah. It's tremendous support.
I love that. You're 100% right. I've used many of those resources myself, and I think a lot of people forget about it, but pretty easy to get plugged into that as long as you're looking for it in the right place. And so those are great recommendations. I got one last question here for you, Tina. If you could whisper in the younger Tina's ear, what would you say?
Good question. It's a tricky question because I think about this all the time, that I wish I had started my business earlier. Like I wish I had known, but the journey that I went on to get here, it's how I got here. You know, like the career that I selected is what brought me to this one. So I can't deny that connection. I wish I had started earlier. So maybe I wish I had whispered, you know, or organize more. I don't know, but the process was the process that it took. You know, I went to a conference as a writer and an organizer was speaking at that conference, and that's how it happened. But so I know that being a writer led me here, but
so no regrets. What do you think that you would have, why would you have wanted to start earlier?
Just for the physical energy, I guess, you know, like that part of it. Yeah. And I don't know, I kind of want, I know everything that I want to do right now. And I just I want more time.
Yeah. Yeah. It sounds like your dream's gotten bigger.
Yes.
That's incredible. Tina, you have been just wonderful here today. You've given so much value. I don't just often say pause and re-listen and take notes. We have a lot of incredible guests, but you have given very, very practical tidbits here today that listeners can actually go grow their business with. And so I just want to thank you for that on behalf of the listeners, as well as even myself. I really enjoyed this. How can the listener find you? Whether they're in your area and they need to hire you, or maybe they just want to reach out as an entrepreneur, pick your brain, see how they can get themselves organized.
Well, first of all, I'll be happy to speak to anybody about if they reach out to me and say, you know, I heard you on Gathering the Kings. Like, I would be very happy to talk to anybody about my business and what they have going on. So I definitely invite people to reach out. My website is www.stowandbehold. That's spelled out AND, stowandbehold.com. And I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram and LinkedIn. I encourage people to be on LinkedIn for sure as business owners. So I hope people will do that and reach out to me that way as well.
Yeah, I love that. Love the name also. I meant to bring that up earlier, but love the name and just the feeling that almost like a ... that it leaves the emotional attachment to those things maybe. But again, Tina, you've been incredible. Thank you for being here. Blessings on your family and the different directions that your family's going right now. And of course, your business. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. Have a great day.
Thank you for listening to Gathering the Kings today. I hope that you were able to pull out a few nuggets to go apply into your business right away. More importantly, though, I hope that you're realizing that it takes more to be successful than just being by yourself, doing it all on your own, carrying the weight all by yourself. What I have realized, not only in my own journey from multiple businesses and multiple different industries, and now interviewing literally over 200 or 300 other very successful 7, 8, and 9-figure business owners, is that it's tough to do it alone. And so Gathering the Kings literally exists to bring together successful entrepreneurs. In fact, we are putting together 1,000 kings, specifically who are grateful but not done. We're intentionally assembling kings who fight tooth and nail for their business, family, and communities. And here's what we believe, that in the pursuit of excellence in those areas, that it ignites within us the responsibility to govern power and forge a lasting legacy. So if that relates and resonates with you, and you know that you need people around you, sharp, qualified, other very successful business owners, I want you to go to gatheringthekings.com. I want you to take a look at what we're doing and see if it makes sense for you to be part of our pursuit to 1,000 kings. Talk soon.